All right, guys, this is another episode of Silverback Syndicate. I am with a special guest today, my main man, Serge, from Miami Travel Services. I'm going to let him tell you about his company. As I've said before, drivers are important, but not just drivers, but transportation companies, their services, because you may not always have a situation where you need tactical mindset drivers. There's going to be occasions where you have dignitaries, certain celebrity clientele, as well as corporate clientele. Now, their expectations of what a driving service should be is absolutely different from what some artists or demographic of artists and other people in other celebrity worlds need. So that's why we have Serge here today. I'm going to let him introduce himself and more about his company, and then we'll start going ahead and getting into what makes you unique in your brand, as well as some of your marketing skills here in this demographic we call Miami.
What's going on? Good to be on the podcast. My name is Serge, and I run Miami Travel Services. We've been in business for over 10 years, but I've been in the business since I was 12 years old, helping my dad in New York run his limo company. So I've been around for a while.
Okay.
But the specifics of my business is strictly referral. There is no advertising. I mean, we do have an Instagram page, but it's just like pictures of stuff. Mm-hmm. Because 90% of the people, if not more, that we deal with are people that don't want anyone to know that they're at a particular place at a particular time. Mm-hmm. It's literally emirs, it's kings, it's CEOs of like top 5 companies. We have driven the richest people in the world, I would say the top 3. And that's like, we have worked with artists quite a few times, but it's not something that we specialize in. Mm-hmm. Because driving an artist, especially in the hip hop genre, it's not worse pressure or less, it's a different type of business. You know, it's more like fast on the go. You have to look out. Obviously, you know yourself, like a lot of drivers, they get starstruck. Mm-hmm. I'd prefer to drive somebody like, I don't know, like Jeff Bezos or somebody like that, where the driver, a lot of times they don't know who these people are, although these people could buy half the world. Mm-hmm. You know, or like, let's say the emir comes from, you know, one of the like main Saudi countries or Qatar or whatever. And, you know, also the drivers, they don't get starstruck. They just do their job. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we have separate security personnel that's usually with them. Once in a while, we do work with guys that we get in Miami, mm-hmm. but almost 90-something% of the time, they come in with their own security. Okay. So we need a lot of guys that speak different languages. Yeah. Especially Arabic, Spanish, Portuguese. We have a lot of Brazilian clients, a lot of Jewish clients, mm-hmm. a lot of heads of banks, so things like that. Okay.
So you kind of make sure, based off the assignment, what type of driver, as far as culturally speaking, it does help. Okay, yeah, if this client's coming from here, then I want this guy who speaks that language to be in the car. Are there ever any instances where the client actually says, hey, make sure they don't speak their language?
Quite a few.
Okay.
Quite a few, because a lot of times, especially when it's banking, they do a lot of deals in the cars themselves, and they don't want the driver to know. Like, for example, we'll have, just, you know, it doesn't mean that we drove them, but let's say head of Bank of Israel. Mm-hmm. It could be a family trip. Yeah. Where he wants the driver to speak Hebrew. Yeah. Because he will want, one of the things that we do, we don't just drive. Like last month I spent over $190,000 on clients, mm-hmm. and later on we build them. So we actually are kind of like a concierge / your right hand.
Correct.
You know, we do your contracts. I've flown to Bahamas to bring bread and soda because there's a particular bakery that
That they want the
make
product
stuff
from.
here and they want it from here.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, that with something like that, they want the driver to speak the language.
Yeah.
But if they're coming in to do a deal and it's like, you know, $2-3 billion deal, the last thing they want is the driver to speak the language in the car and know what's actually happening.
Okay.
So it's, you know, we do pretty much everything there is as long as it doesn't hurt someone.
That we know of. Don't answer that question. We don't want anybody trying to poke holes in stories.
No. I still believe in karma, and we've had requests that we have denied.
Yeah, as you should. You know, we should always have boundaries.
Absolutely.
One thing I wanted to point out to guys who probably don't know, when you have a driving service, the key word is service, and things that we tactically prefer may not always agree with what is socially the norm when you have a driving service, right? So typically in a driving service, the driver will get out of the car to open the door, right? That is standard. If you're an EP, you never want the driver to get out of the car.
Absolutely.
Right? So if I so happen to get in the vehicle and you can typically notice the difference in driving personnel when you look at them or how they keep their car, right? I know to look at that gentleman and say, hey, I need you to stay in the car. Never get out the car. I'll deal with the doors. And the reason why I say that is because there's a difference between driving service and drivers or tactical drivers, okay? Tactical drivers are more EP mindset, not regards of driving skills, but just the mindset. Driving skills is driving skills. The four wheels are the four wheels.
Yeah.
The concierge guy, when he goes to driving school, he learns the same thing the tactical driver learns.
But we do have, we call it offensive driving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're just going to change the social skills of the driver to meet your detail.
Absolutely.
So I know that as a perspective, like, hey, I'm going to come in and say, hey, listen, brother, don't get out the car. I understand you want to, and I know you want to help with the bags. Do not get out the car. And, you have that conversation. But from your business perspective, do you just tell your guys to see what the bodyguard says, or do you know to kind of like tell them, hey, I know we're a white gloves type service, but understand sometimes you don't get out the car. Sometimes there's a time to get out the car.
It's strictly based on who we're driving.
Mm-hmm.
But the drivers know if there is a security guard present, they never leave the car no matter what.
Yeah.
Because God forbid something, if they're outside holding a bag and somebody does a shootout, and again, we're driving heads of state.
Yeah.
A rapper might have a couple of guys that want to like sort of settle their stuff. A head of state has other heads of state. It's a very different ballgame.
Exactly.
A lot of the times we drive armored cars. A lot of the times we drive 5 to 12 cars. We literally have a budget for red light cameras. Because if there's 9 cars that are driving, there will be the principal, there will be security, there will be more security, there will be nannies, there will be kids, and they're all separated in different cars, completely blacked out. And we'll even have, usually we'll do, if it's like a full transport like that, we'll have police escort.
Yeah,
but
because you don't want to get caught on the X.
Yeah.
But
we do
the exact percentage, but like I think it's 87 or 78% of all incidents with dignitary celebrities, the attack happens at the car.
Yep.
So
yep,
that is why,
and that's the most vulnerable place.
That's why driving services is so important.
Yeah.
And you being referral based, obviously that speaks to the work that you guys do.
Yeah.
Because repeat customers, I feel like, are the best customers. You know what to get from them, and they know what to get from you, and then they also understand the value in your product, and that's why they keep coming back. What would you tell your clientele if you were doing a commercial right now? Boom, I got the camera on you. What do you tell your clientele as far as what they should expect from your company, your service, and your brand every time when your drivers show up?
Basically, that you don't have a driver, you have part of your family. Because we take care of the kids, we bring them to school, we make sure that they're fed, we know if they prefer a particular type of water, we know what type of gum they're allowed to have or not. The driver is part of your family, and we try to lock in one driver that the client prefers for life. We drive a lot of executives that want that particular guy because he knows access to their bank accounts. Like if he needs anything, if God forbid, something happens. We've had, a fight at a restaurant. One of the clients' faces got cut up. A lot of celebrities involved. Our driver went in, took the clients out, made sure nobody had any pictures of the incident, took them to the hospital, made sure the hospital did everything with a fake name, so the main name didn't show up. Basically, we're your right-hand person from the moment that we meet you to the moment that you're dropped off at your residence or your plane.
Okay. Within the boundaries of the law. I was just joking from what you said earlier.
Within the boundaries of somebody getting hurt.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I like that.
We have a lot of lawyers.
So, it's popped in my head while you were speaking. So like in the EP world, right? We get phone calls based off referral. So it's like sometimes we don't get asked to sign NDAs. We're not under the microscope of a background check or security clearance. And a lot of times some of us have a level of security clearance that it's automatically a go. I know what my status level is. When it comes to your drivers, do you guys personally just continually run background checks on your people just to make sure they're on the up and up? Because that's something that's not discussed. Liability is a very big factor. And EP agents understand this. When you send somebody out to a client, that client is now partaking and vouching by law that this person is on the up and up. So when something happens, you open yourself up to a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Because yes, you're doing a driving service company, but it is a business, and liability is liability, and nobody wants liability, especially the rich people. They know that's why they have so many lawyers. That is something people don't take in consideration when they're vetting a driving company.
Absolutely.
But if you're security personnel, you should want to know that the person who's driving is not only securing you physically, but they have a history of making good decisions.
Yes.
And it just popped in my head randomly, so I'm sorry for putting you on the spot like that.
Oh,
it might have been something you want to keep
Actually,
confidential.
I'll tell you more than that. Quite a few clients, they request all the plates of the cars that are going to be there, and we've gotten requests for like technical service done on the cars prior. Every single driver that's going to be there, so they get it's almost like a diplomat clearance.
Yeah.
Especially if it's heads of state, they do double the amount of checks that we do, and we do them monthly because a lot of times somebody will speed or do something and they try to do it under the table. Yeah. And we still run it through because if you're a reckless driver and you might be okay with our client, at one time you're gonna snap. Yeah. The real you is going to come out, especially if the pressure's on, and we don't want that. If we find out that you've been driving like an idiot, but not with the clients in your own personal life, and I see a whole bunch of speeding tickets and accidents and things, you're not going to be with us.
Yeah,
especially a lot of people, they're like, oh, drivers, it's like expandable personnel, I
don't think people understand how detailed power can be.
Yeah. I apologize. We have a driver that last month made $14,000. That's a driver. Yeah. That's not limo. I mean, that's not like taxi. That's not like $14,000. Not counting tips. That's his. That's just from us. And we pay for everything. We supply all new Escalades. We cover every single expense there is. So that's just money for him. Yeah. So knowing how much they make, they better be.
Now, do you ever see that there's a new market of probably guys who used to be EP or pursued that career and then they ended up becoming drivers?
Yes, but the main issue that I've seen is it's usually guys that were not a very good EP.
Okay.
And they couldn't make it there because I would actually say their social skills
Yeah.
is what, because if you're a good guy and I hire you or I hire your services, you really have to go out of your way for me to fire you and look for somebody else, especially if I'm comfortable with you.
Yeah.
Like like 'cause I have real estate in different states, and when I come, especially Ohio, I have security guys pull up with me, and if they're acting like an idiot, we had one guy show up, and Ohio now is an open carry state. The freaking guy looked like RoboCop. He had a gun on his like literally. I've only seen that. Like I said, RoboCop. I've never seen a gun holster on a leg open, and he had a freaking Taurus with an extension clip, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
where are you going?
Yeah,
where are we going? And we need all these bullets.
Yeah, like like we need to look like we're just friends and we're hanging out and looking at the properties. You need to look like almost like a part of the investment crew.
Yeah.
And just by if anything happens, you got to take care of the business, but you can't look like RoboCop because the whole neighborhood's gonna run.
They'll be like, well, what does he have that he needs all that to walk with him?
Yeah.
That's, I would like to think that I've heard it all, but then I always hear a new story. And it just, I'm glad you said this out loud because technically, yes, you are in the car, but you're a client too, right?
Absolutely.
For the EP guys who are sitting next to you, because you may notice that they're a good guard and recommend him for a job that he doesn't even know about, right? So you're vetting them as well.
Absolutely.
It baffles me that these guys don't understand that you guys see what it really is. If your social skills aren't up to par, that's what's making you a bad EP agent. And guys always want to do these tactical trainings and, I can do this, I can do 1,000 push-ups and look how great my body looks. They go for all that. And then they don't know how to shut up in the car. They don't know how to do simple things like that. Or
that's one of the biggest issues I have with security is clients will be talking and they'll literally insert themselves into conversation. And they might even give good advice or something, but it'll derail the conversation. And then in the car, while we're still driving, I'll get a text, get rid of him.
He's talking too much.
And the guy, he'll get upset and be like, what happened? What? They're racist. That's the number one thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, the guy before you is black, the guy in the other car is black, and the other 4 cars are black. No, they're not singling you out for a race.
The craziest part is I've seen EP guys get upset at drivers, right? And we'll be international, right? And I'm saying to myself, they'll say, it's because I'm black, and sometimes I have to correct people because I'm like, you do understand it's not a color thing where we're at, it's a cultural thing. We may not always realize in certain moments how we can offend someone else.
Absolutely.
So if I'm in the car with a foreign dignitary or even culturally somebody outside of my race, there's things that are acceptable in the black community that aren't accepted in the white community or the brown community or whatever community you come from, but they're accepted in others.
With some dignitaries, you're not allowed to look in the eyes of the client.
Exactly.
Like literally, we had a security guard that saw that somebody looked at one of the princess's eyes as she was literally looking at him, asking him for something. But you're still supposed to look down. And we gave full instructions. And he looked up and he smiled and he was like, oh, she loves me. This is exactly what we were talking about before.
Yeah.
Your client is not your friend.
Yeah, definitely not.
And as soon as you step over that boundary, they're not the ones hiring you. That's the social dynamic. Your client that you're driving is not your actual client.
That's why you should just be quiet.
Yes.
Don't say a peep, because can't offend anybody if you don't say anything. For the most part. There's other times you can.
Yeah.
But for the most part. And it's not always, the issue is not always what you think it is. It's not always going to be our color. Okay, I trust me. I know what racism feels like. I'm from the South, but it's not always like that. And as you grow and become a better EP agent or move up in the levels, you will understand that because you're open to a bigger world. A thing that's not really recognized is you have to be a chameleon when it comes to cultures and traditions and differences between people when where they come from. You don't have to be the smartest guy in the room, but you have to remember these things, or at least do your own little research. Talking to a Arab female, that's a no. You don't talk to her at all. You don't look at her.
Yeah.
You say, hey, sir, and you keep it pushing. You have to learn these things, but don't learn it in the moment where you fuck up.
Yeah, that's what makes an amazing, I would guess, EPs and drivers, where if we do something in a different country, and a lot of times the clients will bring us with like the whole crew.
Yeah.
Do some research in advance. Just see what the culture is. Like, if you stick two sticks, the chopsticks in Japan into the thing, that means you told the chef F off and, you have horrible food. And all you did was just put the chopsticks in there. You didn't know.
Yeah.
But certain things, like, just ask. Or, like, look up, like, cultural norms of the country that you're in. It takes 5 minutes, but you're getting paid for this. It's not just about, like, this. We become part of the family. Mm-hmm. And as long as I call us furniture that does the job. Because as soon as the client feels like they don't have to act in front of you, whether it be a celebrity or whether it be, a king of a country, that's when you become pretty much like forever, until they literally have to find a reason to get rid of you.
Yeah, because to be able to see a human flip their switch from their career mode to personal and be on their personal time, they're around enough employees or people watching that they know who they can be themselves around. And once they get to that comfort level, it's a great thing for you financially, but sometimes it sucks for you socially or family-wise because they always expect you to be there. So it's a gift and a curse.
Be mindful of how you act in the team. Because if you're going to be in this business for longevity, how you act with the drivers, don't forget, drivers get to pick the security.
Yeah.
And drivers get to tell the client, hey, I got a great guy.
Yeah.
Every single security guy I ever hired, every EP, has been because I liked working with him. And a lot of times I'll get somebody and they don't need a driver, but they'll be like, hey, do you have any good guys? We're driving Kodak Black, or we're driving, Serena Williams, or we're driving whoever. They want the particular guys. So I have a Rolodex in my head. I have like white looking, like Secret Service guys that look like some doofy, guy just came out of the library. Mm-hmm. And I have big scary black dudes that look like they just came out of UFC, so, but if I like that particular person, I'll know exactly who to send.
Yeah.
And I send a lot of work to a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the clients come in with their own drivers, but security they don't carry around. They just literally call up and say, hey, do you have good guys?
Yeah, it's cheaper. That's actually a market a lot of guys don't seem to understand. I actually did that early on in my career. I didn't want to travel. But if I'm here and I was able to build a network of relationships from my club days, dealing with the EPs who come in or just doing events in general, running into celebrities and their EPs. They, everybody's used to the same face. And a lot of times you'll be amazed. We're all dressed alike.
Absolutely.
Right? So if we're all in black, we pretty much got on the same gear. And you see me everywhere. You may not see me standing next to someone, but you see me in the room. You see me in the vicinity. You see me in an area that is, I guess you could say, hard to get into, right? I may just be the venue guy, or I may be the guy who owns the company or is running the operation side, and I'm walking around. I just keep running into you. But we're all dressed alike. The one thing we don't do is ask, hey, what do you do or what are you doing here? We just assume.
Yeah.
Oh, he looks the part, so I'm just assuming he must be a bodyguard. So that was kind of how I got a little bit of access with the whole bodyguard world and getting jobs to do bodyguard work. Was I was here and I looked the part. Now, granted, yes, I was, and I was interested in it. I didn't have a lot of experience like as far as traveling because I didn't travel yet. I didn't want to. But I did know how to do it here in Miami at a high level, so there I got hired. And then it gets to the point where they're like, all right, come on, you're coming with me. But if you're a guy who don't do well traveling, let's say some guys get motion sickness, they're scared of planes and all that stuff, it's okay. Do it where you work locally because there's a market for that. So you get good with the drivers and they know that you're a good guy and they recommend you.
Yep.
And then you can just eat off of that because if they get with a big company like yours, there's constant work.
Yeah. I can literally feed drivers 5-6 days a week.
Yeah. And then also, if they do good work, the client refers them later on too to another friend.
Absolutely.
And you could just be that Miami guy and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You're still doing what you love. You get to go home every day. That is a luxury too. You still get to spend more time with your kids. So if you're a guy who wants to do EP, but then you still want to be a present father and a husband, or vice versa, a wife and a mother, because we have a lot of female EP agents. That is something they should look into, getting with a driving company like yourself and vendoring it out that way. But at the end of the day, you have to work with the people you like. That's why it's important that I say this to all the guys in the business. If you're going to do the job, be who you're supposed to be at all times. Just because you're in the car with the driver and you think it's just you and him, it doesn't give you the right to be an idiot. Don't be stupid. Don't be an a-hole, because people work with who they like. And you can get referrals through the driver and vice versa.
And most likely, you're going to get way more referrals through the driver than through the PAX or whoever it is that's sitting in the car.
Because the driver runs into more people at a higher rate, and they get all sorts of requests. The driver is in the car. He has an ear. He may not say to the client, hey, I got somebody, but he may hit you and say, hey, this person's looking for someone. So I heard that the manager's name was such and such. Maybe you can find them online, find a contact, let them know you're out there, and then, maybe that can be something for you. Little things like that.
How do you become that person, or how do you train your guys to be that person?
What I've learned throughout time is, and I learned this when I used to play basketball overseas, I wasn't always the best candidate for certain teams, but it usually would work out for me because I was okay with not being home. Mm-hmm. I was okay with not having a girlfriend to call every day. I wasn't dependent on other people for my own comfort or my own comfort within myself, right? So I was okay with being away or being distant. If I can find a guy to mold or try to invest time into, I typically look for them to not have anything serious. They don't have children yet. They have a girlfriend and it's been going for a while, right? But then one of the first things I say to them is, hey, have you talked to your girl about what you're trying to do? And they'd be like, no, she understands. No.
No, they don't.
They don't.
They don't.
And before I even have this talk with them, guys come up to me all the time. Hey, I want to do this. I want to do that. And I'll be like, all right, cool. I don't blow them off, but I don't pay them any mind. I'll put them on my radar and I'll just start watching them. Watch what they do on their own for their own self. Watch how they post socially, how they move around, how they carry themselves. What is important to them as far as their image and what they're projecting in the world. I will do that. This one kid I'm really investing in, I watched him for 2 years. I waited 2 years before I even acknowledged giving him an opportunity to work any kind of job on the EP side for me. And he's been thriving. He has a girlfriend. She knows what he does. She's okay with it. I constantly, I'm checking on him socially just as much as I'm checking on the tactile X's and O's. Hey, what's your home life like? Because that's what's going to make or break the agent.
Absolutely.
You can hire 1,000 guns. You see them in the movies all the time. The rich guy has 40 bodyguards. 40 bodyguards are dead. And then here comes another 20. You can always find somebody to do the X's and O's. can you find the guy who can be in the room and make you feel comfortable to take your face off? Because we've seen it. They and then boom, they just turn it off.
Yeah.
And then they say things. And you're like, damn, you wasn't like that over there. That's just the game.
Be furniture, my friend.
Yeah. and so, like I said, be in the car and don't say anything. Don't say a word. You know, be everywhere but be nowhere at the same time. It sounds crazy, but it is something you can do. So yeah, that's what I start with before anything else. I don't care. Socially, that's the important part. That's what makes or breaks a guy, longevity wise, because it'll leak into your personal life at some point anyway. So if there's not a feng shui to it, it's absolutely useless. Just like your drivers probably do. That the guy who made $14K, I'm sure he put in a lot of hours.
Stupid amount of hours.
Exactly. So that means he took his time away from his family, his loved one, or whatever he got going on in his personal life.
Yeah.
And that can wear and tear on the driver. He might start falling asleep on the job, not being as aware as he usually is because he's been doing so many hours. You know, it goes both ways. I think the driver is just as important as the EP agent. Because let's say an incident happens.
No, it's one team. It's symbiosis. One doesn't go without the other.
Something happens outside the car. The agent gets the client in the car, right? In certain situations, the agent may not have time to get in the car. He may have to go.
Yep.
I would have to know that driver is just as capable as if I was behind the wheel. Because in reality, in the psyche, I want to be behind the wheel, but I have a driver.
Yeah.
But I better have the best damn driver behind the wheel.
Yeah.
So
that goes with trust.
Yeah, that goes with trust, but then also knowing that the driver is mentally strong like me. He can separate home life from work and stay locked in. And that's why you need the social skills with your home life to maintain, because there's no happy home. You can't go nowhere with that. That's your foundation. So how we do it.
There's a lot of sad people sitting there like, oh, man, I can't do this.
Listen, you got to be honest with yourself. Do something you're good at, but do something you can be great at, too.
Back to your question regarding a lot of EPs coming in and doing the driver's side. Because they were carrying and they were security beforehand, what they're trying to do is they're kind of try to move into the driver's side and then sell themselves as a EP driver. Which is horrible, because you can't come out and guard a person and open their door and be on the lookout for like you're splitting two jobs into one, and you're half-assing both. Yeah. And you're putting the client in danger. You're putting yourself in danger because you look like an idiot. You know, like you can't be driving like this.
And the catch-22 to that is then you always end up, sometimes you'll have a client for a long time where you were the EP agent, but then their money and their fame started dwindling a little bit. But they still need somebody around, just in case, but not somebody walking next to them all the time now, right? So they ask you, hey, can you be my driver now? You've been their EP, so you're still going to be EP in the mind, but now you're stuck behind the wheel. Yeah. And that can circumvent the business for you, because you mainly have your guys as drivers, but now these other guys are trying to open up a market where they're fading from EP and trying to retire into driving, and it just doesn't work. So I tell people, yeah, you could be an armed driver, but if shit hit the fan, the client's going to be like, he's just my driver. You got to explain why you were armed. And if you sit there and say, oh, well, yeah, she, I was a bodyguard, but then she told me to be her driver. Well, did she tell you to be armed? And then it just turns into a whole mess.
There's a lot of clients that don't want the driver armed at all, because they don't want the driver. As a human, you're going to be like, I got to protect my client. Mm-hmm. And your brain's going to just split. You're like, okay, do I reach for the gun and protect, or do I drive? And that split second where you're not just dedicated to one thing can cost everybody their life. Yeah. So, yeah, that's why I don't hire ex-EPs. I do hire a lot of ex-military guys. Okay. And I've noticed that they are probably some of the best at this business because they're amazing at following orders. You know, a lot of times, that's one of the biggest things that I've had with EPs. I tell them one thing, and it's because the client prefers this particular thing. And they're like, no, I know what to do better. I'm like, well, then it's the last time that we're working together. Because if the client has certain preferences, my job is to make sure those preferences are done. If you think you're better, go do with somebody else.
Yeah, because I don't have to pay you. You should be paying me, clearly. You know what's best.
Exactly. And, you know, like a lot of the people that we have from the military, like I've had Army Rangers work for me. I've had Navy SEALs that are retired, and they just needed something to do because their whole mindset is, here's the mission. You have to execute on the mission.
Yeah.
When they're working in a menial job, they literally go nuts. That's not their mindset. And they like the fact that our mission is to pick up, we have 21 cars. We have to make sure the kids are running. We literally sometimes follow the kid like this as he's like riding on the bike just to bring him water and then make sure nothing happens.
Yeah.
Especially with like heads of state, you know, and they like the fact that they're on a mission. They don't question, they don't do this, they don't do that. And I love the fact that at the end, they'll bring me a sheet of different things that they noticed that could be done better. It's one of the coolest things because they're like, yeah, we were doing this. This guy was late. This guy didn't pull up behind me on the light, and we had to like move over and sit there and wait because he could have just ran it. And he didn't know that there was a budget, you know, like all these different things. So they're almost like a commander / partner / driver. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're not only following orders, but they're taking the job as if it was a team thing.
Exactly.
Not only that, but
exactly.
pride in saying, okay, this is what we could do, or this is what could make
Absolutely.
the team better.
Absolutely.
And you being a business owner, you want
those
employees to
people
love your brand,
Yeah.
just the way you would.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it hard to develop a EP because every generation, the older generation, always looks down because the newer one they have leeway and luxuries that the older generation didn't. So there's always like a chip on the shoulder, like, well, you guys got it easy, and then things that you probably thought needed to be done because it's how you came in, you're trying to put it on somebody who's newer, and they may not retain that the same way or fall in line the same way. But versus when you have military, the Army soldier from 1960 to the guy from 2023, they all went through the same thing.
Exactly.
So you get the same result.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe just a different branch, but for the most part, the foundation's the same.
There's a mission, there's execution, there's like rehashing of what went wrong, what went right, what could be done better.
Yeah, with EP, you can't strip them to a team thing. They're coming in with a alpha mentality of one man. And then you're trying to mold them into being the best version of themselves. But because they're an alpha, they're hard-headed. And they're fighting and they're bucking the system. And
okay, how do you deal, let's say you got 4 cars.
Yeah.
And you got 4 EPs. You're a team. You're the head. How do you differentiate yourself or get them to work under you and listen if everybody's trying to be the alpha? That's one of the things, like I've noticed because I own so many companies, a lot of the people that work for me actually make more money than I do without any of the risks that I take. And they actually like being number 2, number 3, because that's where they can shine, kind of like an entrepreneur, like a person inside, you know, they do their own thing. And I appreciate that. And I think that for EPs, if you understand that it's not even, I wouldn't even call it an alpha. I would say the person that you respect and on this particular drive, this is the main guy. Everybody listens to him, because if everybody's doing their own thing, everything's going to go to shit.
So, this is when the social skills come into play, right? I know we all have an ego. I know we all feel that we are alpha men compared to other men. That's cool. The one thing we don't like is we don't like to be told what to do, right? Or at least be told by someone that we may feel equal to. when it comes to me, I don't have an ego to care who feels like the boss. So I open the door where I say, hey, we're a team. We're all equals in this situation. Okay? But then we are given assignments based off of what we fit into the best. So yeah, I may have 4 cars, but this person's better at being the body man for this client. They socially get along better. So he's in the second car or the third car, depending on what route we're taking and what the car the principal needs to be in. Then there's people like me. I like to see what's coming ahead because I analyze very quickly. So I like to be in the lead car. Okay. And then there's somebody that may be on the team who has great instinct. I'm going to put him in the last car because I know he's always going to be looking around on what's coming up, what stands out on the back. And he's not going to just trust what I saw. He's going to double check. He's a little bit paranoid. He's the guy that he don't know how to turn it off.
And he's going to see if anybody's following.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to turn it off. So I'm going to use that to my advantage. I'm going to use his natural senses to my advantage. And then whoever's in the second or third car, they're probably a really good communicator. You know, somebody who is not an introvert, but they communicate based off the job. They're not going to be on the radio doing too much talking, playing around. They'll be in the car doing their job, and they'll speak when they need to. You know, just a solid guy who doesn't like to talk a lot. Boom. Take advantage of his social skills. There's always one of those guys around. So it's just easy. Like you're not bossing nobody around. We just move people around to the hot spots that they work best in, you know. I don't like to walk in the back all the time, but you know, in one circumstance it may be that I'm the body man. So I walk in the back. You know, you just play your position off the situation. And if you can take your ego out of it for the betterment of the team and give it a team concept, that way everybody feels fulfilled and getting the mission accomplished. I think that's the way you balance it between a guy with no military background, that's an EP, versus an EP guy. Because if you've done any level of security, you've worked with a team. You had to. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
So if you started off and worked with a team, because we all have to work with a team. There's no security job where you're just out the gate by yourself forever. You're going to work with the team constantly. And you're going to notice certain things, unless you're just a knucklehead and you won't last long. But you're going to notice...
you're going to try to become a driver.
That might be one of them. But you're going to notice like cues of things that you shouldn't be doing that hurts the team.
Yeah.
Like you'll notice that stuff. And you'll notice what helps the team. Hopefully you'll take pride in it because you want to be something bigger than just the average Joe Schmo security. So, but you still remember that foundation. You still know. And a lot of us have played sports. It's another thing.
I like the fact that the best guys that I've ever hired, they work as a team with people they just met.
Yeah.
They kind of like, you know, we do the meetup beforehand, let's say 30 minutes to an hour before, and they kind of like agree on the ground rules. And they literally pick like, okay, you're going to be the lead, you're going to be this, you're going to be that, exactly as you put it. And everyone agrees. And sometimes they'll have the one ego guy, and then he's just never invited back.
Yeah. And another thing is when you work as a team, you're all pushing yourselves forward, right? So like with me, I'll just tell everybody, hey, listen, I don't know it all. So if you see something, say something so that we can all be on point and we'll just agree on what's best for the situation. And as long as guys know that they have a say and they don't feel like they're just being told what to do and have no leeway or energy to be able to say something back, or they're not respected enough where their word is important to the mission at heart, you know, that's when you have the catastrophes. But if people feel like they can speak up and have an opinion, because all we really care about is being able to say something and being heard.
Yeah.
It tampers the ego a whole lot more. It's customer service, but within the team. Because realistically, EP does customer service just like the transportation business does their service. there is a customer element to it because there's a customer.
Absolutely.
So if you put out the best product and the customer feels good about it, you get repeat work, and like yourself, you stay in business and you get to invoice for 6 figures consistently and be able to pay guys $14,000 to go home and take care of their family. Because at the end of the day, that's what's the most important. You've built something that is changing lives because you're employing good people who are able to take care of their families, and then their families have a foundation where they can grow up and say, hey, this was the standard of my life because my dad was a driver, but not a regular driver. Like, oh, he did this type of driver. He was driving these type of people. Woo, woo, woo. Everybody's taking pride off a product that you put out there. So once again, I want to thank you for coming in today. If you guys are in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach area or anywhere internationally, just tap into Serge at Miami Travel Services. Together, remember, together, ape strong. Have a good day.